Good morning to all my 7th graders. For our exploration activity project, we're going to be researching endangered species. And so the first step that you will need to take on this project will be to click on Exploration Activity Topic List. If you'll click there, you'll scroll down and look at this list of some examples of some species that are classified as either vulnerable or endangered species. And we have a bunch of mammals listed here. We have several birds listed. If you scroll on down, you'll see a list of reptiles, amphibians, fish, insects, and other organisms. Most of those are invertebrate animals. So what you need to do first is read over the list and choose a topic. Choose one animal that you would like to do your research on. Now here's the clicker. It's first come, first served. So whoever picks the animal first gets to do that animal. If it's already called for, then you have to choose a different topic. And if I click like beside your choice, then it's finalized. So once you read over the list, you'll go down here in the comment box, type the name of the animal that you choose. And again, like I said, it's first come, first served. So take a look at any other students who have already picked a topic and make sure you don't pick the same thing that they did. Okay, now the second step for you to do after you've picked your topic, then you will need to go to the background information assignment. On the background information, you will go to your online textbook and there are some pages for you to read. The first one is to read Food Webs, Distributing the Sun's Energy on page 116 to 119. Remember, the blue slider on the textbook is 16 pages different than what the actual book pages are right here. So for this first passage, instead of you on the blue slider going to page 116, just add 16 to that, so it'd be page 132 on the blue slider. Okay, and you will need to read that passage to help you understand the importance of food webs and feeding relationships between members of different species in an ecosystem. You will need to read Extinction Rivet by Rivet to understand why extinction is a problem and what is being done to conserve and to protect these different animals. Also, plants can go extinct too, so what is being done for conservation of any species. And then lastly, read What's Happening with Habitats to help you understand how and where an organism lives has an effect on itself and other species. And I just noticed I made a typo. I'll have to fix that. And after you've read those, to help me see that you have done this step, I want you to comment below one thing you learned from each reading selection. So tell me something you learned from each one of these reading selections by typing them in the comments box. Okay, and then next step would be for you to do research part 1. So if you do your endangered species research, I have a document that will help guide your research. So you, excuse me, you'll click Open Assignment with Cami, and you will see this graphic organizer. Well, on this graphic organizer, the first line says the organism I am researching is commonly called blank. So you would put its common name here. Its common name is the one that you signed up for on the list. Then you will go to Google and you will start doing research on your animal, or a very excellent resource I have for you that I would love for you to use and would have the most reliable information is this link right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click right there, and all that you would need to do once you got here is just type in the name of your animal. So I'm just going to use the Red Hills Salamander as my example. And so when I search for it, there will be information that will come up here about my animal. Here's a picture of it. It tells its scientific name, Phagognathus hubricketi. Now I'm just guessing on how to pronounce that. It says that the population is decreasing, and this indicates that it is endangered. So I can find out all kinds of information about my animal. You can find geographic ranges where it is located. See, I can see here that it's located in Alabama. It's a resident in Monroe County, part of Butler County, and part of Crenshaw County in Alabama. So that's pretty cool. It's an Alabama species. Okay, you can look at its status, and its status is endangered. So it's in the orange, which stands for endangered. It's 100% endangered. Okay, you can find out things about its habitat. You can find out things about where it lives. It is a terrestrial organism. That means it lives on the ground surface. It's not a water creature. It lives on the ground, or in the ground, in caves and so forth. Okay, so I was just using that as an example, but IUCN Red List is a great website to use for your animal. Now, red hill salamander doesn't have very much information about it, but if I chose something like the African elephant, if I can spell African elephant, then you're going to find a lot more information just because it's studied more and it's found in a larger area. So it is a vulnerable species. African elephant, scientific name Loxodonta africana. So you can see here there's already way more information about this animal. It tells about its habitat, shows where it's found on Earth. It tells threats to it, conservation actions that are being put into place, all kinds of things that you can click on and look at. So there's a lot of information about some species, but there is not a lot known about other species. And so if I was doing my project on the red hill salamander, I would have to mention that not a lot's known because it's such a regional type of animal. It's not found in a large area. Anyway, that would be a great website for you to use. That would be my #1 choice of a website for you to use for this project. And so when you are doing your research, trying to find out the status of your animal, its characteristics, and what I mean by characteristics is things that describe the animal, like its size, what does it eat, what kind of a life cycle does it follow, and I put etc. because there could be all kinds of physical characteristics you could describe about the animal. And then we also need to know a bit about its habitat, because that's very important. Sometimes these animals would not be vulnerable or going extinct if their habitat was being better protected. Geographic range is talking about where on Earth, what actual countries or states or whatever cities that it may be around. The geographic range is actually where it's found on the map. Population estimate would be about how many they think are still alive. Reasons why the species has decreased in number. What are any of those threats that are threatening either the species directly, like hunting or something like that, or something that threatens its habitat. And then right here you can list any sources that you're using and tell me why you think it is important to know about this. Okay, so that was research part 1. Now for research part 2, there are some other things that we need to know about your animal. So I divided it up into 2 different days or 2 different assignments for you. So for research part 2, okay, you're still talking about whichever species you chose from the list, and we're looking for steps that can be taken to protect the species. Okay, what are public attitudes towards the species? And what I mean by that is it a species that is well known and well studied? Is it some animal that people really get interested in saving? You know, like you've heard of things like save the tigers, save the whales, and sometimes there's a lot of public interest in saving a certain species. Whereas something like the red-hill salamander is not really well known, and it's only found in Alabama. So people in Alabama might care more about it, but people in other parts of the world might not really even know anything about it at all and wouldn't probably care as much about it. How much is known about the species? And please don't just put a lot or a little. Please give me a more detailed explanation there about if it's a well-known species or not, and why. What is the species' role in the food web? Is it a carnivore and top predator? Is it an omnivore? Is it an herbivore? What does it eat? Is it a predator or is it prey? You know, any of those kinds of feeding relationship information like we would talk about if we're looking at a food web or a food chain. Does the species live in a geographic area that is protected or preserved? In some parts of the world, there are wildlife preserves and things like that an animal might live in. Also, the animal might be, some of them may be living in zoos or other protected areas. Is this species protected by law? Well, in general, all endangered or vulnerable species are going to be protected by the Endangered Species Act. So you can mention the Endangered Species Act, but also there may be some local laws also that might be protecting that species. Do zoos or research organizations have captive breeding programs for this species? So think about, are any of these in zoos or other places where they are protected and allowed to breed into that protected area? Like, for example, the California condor was about to go extinct back in the 1980s, but they took in a male and a female and allowed them to breed, and then through captive breeding programs they brought that species back from the brink of extinction. So is there anything like that going on for your species? And again, why is it important to understand this? Okay, after you have completed all of your research, then the next step would be for you to take that research that you have gained on part 1 and part 2 and create a Google slideshow with it. So the last part of your project is right here under Endangered Species Presentation. You will scroll down and, well, y'all will click on my document up here, but on my screen I have to scroll down to the bottom. But as I'm scrolling, you can see the rubric that I'm going to be using to grade you. Each one of these boxes is worth up to 25 points about your project. Okay, if I look at my slideshow, I've set up a template for you. You will put the name of your animal and your name on the first slide. Then you can add as many slides as you need to cover all the material about your animal. The material that we had on research part 1 and research part 2 need to all go on your slideshow, but you can arrange it in as many slides as you need. I'm not going to give a set number, but be creative. Right now the background on this slide shows just white and plain, but be creative. Add pictures, add backgrounds, add colors, but just make sure that the pictures and things you add are relevant to your topic. If I'm doing my project on the red-hill salamander, I would not want to put pictures of a horse or a cartoon character or something like that, for example. And then The last slide is your bibliography slide, where you will list all of the sources that you used. Good luck, and I'm excited.